I think the people on the Conservative side who are concerned are the people who sympathise and have more sympathy for what reform stands for. I don't. I disagree with them. And you only had to listen to Asma's interview with the deputy leader of Reform, and he tried to almost justify one of their crazy candidates' points about, why didn't we sort of negotiate a truce with Hitler, to realise actually this is a party that, that you have to tackle. But I don't think they appeal. I don't think they will do well ultimately.
Front page story on the Times this morning about the Reform UK and their polling, because new polling for the Times from YouGov shows that the Reform UK has overtaken the Conservatives for the first time, which is something of a symbolic moment. Jack, I wonder if this is also a symptom of people's disillusionment, lack of enthusiasm, perhaps their thirst for more information, is resulting in parties like Reform UK picking up more support, because there is just a switch off from the Conservatives and from Labour as a result of how they're campaigning.
Well, I think the Conservatives should be very worried about this. Nobody would have predicted 20 years ago that within a very small period of time, Scottish Labour would be under 20% in opinion polls and almost wiped out in Scotland. There may be a resurgence in this election, but that happened to the main party of government in Scotland in a fairly short period of time. A number of factors influencing that. Nobody would have predicted 20 years ago that the leaders of government, not just the leaders of opposition, leaders of government in places like Spain and Austria, so not Spain, Italy and Austria, would be from parties far to the right of the traditional centre-right in those countries. And we've seen over the last 20 years or so, right across Europe, sometimes in Canada, sometimes you could say in the Republican Party in the US, and actually in other parts of the world as well. You've seen these more populist left and right, more populist, more extreme political positions with charismatic, or at least celebrity, maybe not charismatic, but celebrity leaders come through and overtake the main parties of the centre left and the centre right, depending on which country is most affected by that. So I think this is entirely possible. I don't think this poll will be the last one that has Reform ahead of the Conservatives in percentage terms. And I think that while the Conservatives ultimately I suspect will win more seats, many more seats than Reform, I would not be at all surprised if this is still a contest that's going on right up until election day.
Yeah. Nikki, it's interesting, isn't it, what Jack's saying there? And, I immediately wonder how the Conservatives will respond to this. I mean, will they respond with what has become character? How should the Conservatives respond to this?
Well, that's exactly how the Conservatives should respond to it, is calm, carry on, we know what we said, and everything else. We'll have to see. I think probably well, it'll be very interesting to know what's actually happened in terms of discussions. Look, I think Jack's right. It is a symbolic moment. I have to say, I am not. I think we should be calm about it on the Conservative side of things, because I do think you're right in your original question, which is I think this is partly a sort of consequence of a plague on everyone's houses, and therefore we want to send a message. You had my House of Lords roommate Robert Hayward on before, who was talking about why he has question marks over this particular poll and polling company and the way that they are getting these results. I mean, it's interesting what's happening on the ground, and he was talking about by-election results, and there was a by-election in for Greenwich Council last night. Conservatives getting 1,300 votes, Labour getting 1,100, Reform getting 232. So on the ground, I think it's not happening, but we shouldn't be complacent and take seriously people's concerns. And it's interesting. Chloe was asking a question earlier on, I think, about why are Conservatives perhaps not more concerned? Why am I not more concerned about Reform? I think the people on the Conservative side who are concerned are the people who sympathise and have more sympathy for what Reform stands for. I don't. I disagree with them. And you only had to listen to Asma's interview with the deputy leader of Reform, and he tried to almost justify one of their crazy candidates' points about why didn't we sort of negotiate a truce with Hitler, to realise actually this is a party that that you have to tackle. But I don't think they appeal. I don't think they will do well ultimately.
Yeah. Nikki and Jack are staying with. Oh, sorry, Jack. Do you want to come back? Go on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've done quite a bit. I've done more door knocking in the last couple of weeks than I've done in a long time, obviously, and it's been very interesting. I'm not sure that the sort of what somebody once said on Twitter, whether it's on the left or on the right, really resonates much with people who pay almost no attention to Twitter in their real lives. But I do think things like a sitting MP betting on the election when he probably, I'm going to have to say this very carefully, he may well have had information that helped him make that judgment. I think that sort of stuff, a kind of one rule for them, one rule for us, people not using power well with good values, I think that really resonates with people. Sort of small, but a cumulative set of small incidents that just show a kind of lack of moral core and competence and decency. And I think that really has had, that's what's having the biggest impact. I think people they're not sure yet who else to vote for, but they just had enough.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I think the question is what cuts through, and you're never quite sure, are you?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry Scott from The Times. Mr. Farage, what do you make of Suella Braverman saying that there's not much difference between Conservative parties and your party's policies? And Rishi Sunak has said this morning that he's not really interested in reform. Do you think?
I had my cup of tea ready for the 5:30 news on the BBC this morning, and I actually spat quite a lot of it down my dressing gown when I heard her saying that our policies weren't really. Is this the party that's given us? I mean, have a think about this. 1 in 30 people walking along the streets in this country, 1 in 30 of our population have come into Britain in the last 2 years. Is that the sort of policy she thinks that I support? The tax burden is the highest it's been since 1948. I mean, how she can say that, I don't know. Now, I've seen various other attacks on me over the course of the last couple of days, coming from Conservative members of Parliament, even people that I sided with during the Brexit fight. I think they are slowly but surely waking up and smelling the coffee. They're realising that many of their longest term, and as they would have seen it, most loyal supporters say enough is enough. And they are accepting the line that Labour have won already. So you may as well vote for something that you actually believe in and have the hope of building some coherent policy direction for the next 5 years.